Hello and welcome to another episode of Mordred's multiplayer community political chat. Exciting session this week, Zale. Wouldn't you say so?
Oh man, it was a lot of fun, both for me doing stuff myself, and also just I think from a bystander perspective, just being able to watch all the shenanigans that were happening around the world.
Europe was certainly a little more interesting this week than it was last week. But before we get started, let's take a look at Great Powers. Any surprises here for you?
Yeah, there's still a France on the list. It's kind of surprising to me.
Did you expect it to go much worse?
Um, yeah, honestly, I full expected Hanover to sit it out. I didn't expect Jamie to finally get committed somehow. And like Martian and Curb, I kind of put a 50-50 on them getting involved, but I didn't think that it'd be as involved as they were, I guess, or I don't think it would have made as much difference as it actually did. So
Yeah, a few surprises for me. Mamelukes is on the list. Hungary is not. Um, Interestingly enough, Hungary, there are quite a few players sitting right around about 1,000 dev. So it's actually a pretty tight list here. So we've got the top eight, obviously, but then we've got Hungary, Tuscany, Portugal, Timurids, Kilwa, Maywar, Hanover, decent amount of dev right below the Great Power list. So the Great Powers definitely haven't distanced themselves too much from the rest of the pack yet. It'll be interesting to see in coming weeks if there's a little more of a separation between the two groups. But let's talk about the New World, and I want to call attention to New Spain. So Gabs, obviously, our Spanish player, planned to bring in a colonial player, Slurfin. Only has one colonist because he hasn't taken the ideas. Oh, sorry. Spain only has one colonist because of idea choice, obviously. Gabs originally started colonizing in the wrong colonial region without realizing. So you see, he's got four provinces, but they're in the Columbia colonial region. So it took an extremely long time for New Spain to even form. And you look at New Spain and you compare it to New Norway. New Norway is over 350 dev. New Spain, 22 dev. It it's a striking disparity between the two. Any thoughts on our colonial nations?
um, it's gonna be kind of a struggle, I think. Who can expand quicker? New Spain did get off to that war start, like you're pointing out, but it's probably going to be very easy, or at least a lot quicker for them to be able to go through and just conquer land. I think than it would take for New Norway. I haven't seen New Norway's ideas, so I don't know for certain. Um, but it's versus colonizing everything and getting like one or two provinces here from like the Shawnee or Choctaw or something. So it's gonna be interesting in that regard, and I think if Slurfin's a pretty good player, so if he can like capitalize on some stuff, I think he stands a running chance in the expansion game. It certainly helps that their overlords are allied, but as they get colonial nations, alliance limits are going to start becoming a factor, and um, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if not the next session, but perhaps 2 or 3 sessions from now, we're going to see one of the colonial nations basically becoming big enough that it causes their overlords to go to war against each other, or at least to stop being so friendly.
And let's shift and talk about the big green colonizing machine in Portugal. I know we were a little hard on Dominic earlier in the season for perceived slow expansion, but a pretty strong session from Portugal, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it was a really good session for him. I think he's running into an issue, which is the fact that Kilwa is so strong. Kilwa had an amazing session, um, and so he's kind of walked out, I think, of some of the expansion he might have liked in that area. But in terms of the New World, he's done a great job um, this past session, and really those trade goods, yeah, right when you click over, like oh my goodness, really milking those gold chants and that
Yeah,
sort of thing. I don't
he's
know how
already
much.
making 50 ducats from gold,
Yeah,
and
50.
he's got plenty of dev left. This one's at 10, which is the appropriate level in my mind, but 1, 3, 2, 1, 1, and then plenty of room to develop. So
He
look
did
out,
he did take
Portugal's
eco
coming.
ideas, right?
He is working
Oh,
his way
okay,
through
just got
eco.
one.
So once he
Yeah,
finishes that,
that's
it's
a
going to
money
be,
machine right there.
yeah. And you mentioned Kilwa. Um, Great session from Kilwa. Basically, stranglehold on the Congo area, um, moving up the coast into the Gulf of Aden. Hasn't quite consolidated Madagascar yet, but has also moved heavily into South Africa as well to try to stop uh, all the trade leaving from Africa. So it'll be interesting to see what becomes of Kilwa as maybe Europe quiets down a little bit and people look towards Africa, or Kilwa continues to expand and starts looking towards Europe. What are your thoughts on where Charles will go from here?
Um, I think a lot of that depends on Fizz at the moment. If Fizz decides to stick around, which he may or may not, um, if he decides to stick around, I think we might see a more um, sub-Saharan West Africa kind of worried about Europeans and getting engaged in that sort of thing. Um, and if Fizz doesn't, we might, we'll see probably where, rather than get involved in stuff that he might not want to, he can just expand up the coast and Um, any agreements he has with the Mamluks would be kind of moot, so he can just quickly get up there and take that land before anyone else has a chance, really.
And we're talking about the Mamelukes now, and I know you don't like to say "I told you so," so I'll say it on your behalf. I think Zale told everyone so. Hungary moved in against the Mamelukes, took a chunk out of Anatolia. The coast obviously was the Mamelukes. The interior was the Ottomans. Mamelukes are still in a decent position. They're not too bad off, obviously. 200 ducats a month is an outrageous income. Still plenty of AI to expand into in the Gulf and the Ethiopia trade nodes. What's going to happen here from a Mamlukian perspective?
Um, I don't know. There's a lot of things that could happen. Frankly speaking, Fizz doesn't need Anatolia. Hungary could have that, and Fizz's game would be completely fine. The main reason for him taking Anatolia, and the main reason he is kind of wanting to considering leaving, is because he wanted to form, I think, Rum, which he needs that for. So it's not because he's not wanting to leave because Mamluks are in a horrible position, but um, it's more just because of Diplo and that sort of stuff, which we don't really need to get into. But betrayals and backstabs and lies and deceits and deception and that stuff. But for him, what's next? I think it really just depends on what he wants to do. Let's assume he's going to stay around, right? Or there's going to be a player there. The logical, the smart thing to do would be to stick with the Bakhmanis alliance and go in against the Timurids. Sorry, Dutch, I don't mean to throw you under the bus, but at this point, which I'm sure we're going to talk about later, I think Dutch is currently in a bankruptcy, or he just got out of one. Um, and obviously myself and we're gonna be going at war again. So um, I think he might have just gotten out of it then, because I don't see it there.
Yep.
So he's quite weakened compared to where he was. I took a huge chunk out of him, and that's a pretty easy expansion for the Mamluks. Likewise, Spain, I think, not an easy expansion by any means, but clearly they're facing all sorts of troubles, and the Mamluks might be able to expand. It's like, okay, if my friends the Golden Horde and Blackwanis are splitting Persia and India, I got a friend in Charles down below me. Well, that kind of leaves only one way. I can either try to retake Anatolia, or I can try to go after Spain. Um, And of the two, Spain is the weaker one. So I think logically, it'd make the most sense to jump on that short term. Long term, if I was the Mamluks, I'd be thinking about how far can you trust Martian at this point. Um, and long term, would it be better to help Spain and reconquest your stuff and move into the Balkans? Um, so if I was a Mamluks player, those would probably be the two questions I would ask myself. It'd be how much can I actually get out of the Timris without angering my friends, and then who do I trust more, or more likely who do I think I have a better chance of invading? Because by no means is the Mamluks weak. As you showed, 200 ducats still. I don't know their force limit off the top of my head, but it's in the hundreds, I assume.
Yep, 200.
Yeah, yeah. So
And
respectable
decent
force limit,
idea
plenty of money.
choices as well.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty. Yeah, that's pretty meta Mamluk choices. So yeah, he's in a pretty great position. Even with the painful struggle of swapping to Shia, um, which is another great thing because he's Defender of Faith. Him and Bachmanis can probably swap that out as needed. And yeah, it's also if he
Not a whole
what are you
lot of
gonna do about
bonuses from Defender of the Faith for Shia at this point, though.
No, true enough. But there's plenty of small guys that he can force convert in the Ethiopia area still, if he needs like a last minute, if they need to boost it up real quick. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 countries down there. That's additional 9 countries that he can make Shia, if they're not already. So, yeah, I think the Mamluks still have a lot of options in front of them. Martian has been making a fair share of enemies. It's just I don't know if the enemies that he's making will outweigh how powerful him and Ruthenia are.
Yeah, and let's pivot into Europe now. So obviously, last week's video, I made a public declaration. Oh, I'm going to go in on Ireland. I spent the week trying to do a little diplomacy here and there. Was able to secure some Polish help in the first war. It went poorly for France. It probably had the desired effect for Poland because it didn't go well for me. I got 100%ed, gutted, border gored, but Poland was able to claw basically all the gains that the Irish took in their previous war away. So Novgorod obviously is a vassal under Poland, Ruthenia now. There's no expansion path for the Irish into the Russia area. So overall, I think mission accomplished from France with stunting Irish growth, but ended up costing me dearly. And as you can see, I'm in round number 2, piling up the debt. All of us are. Manpower's running low across the board, and casualties are approaching or north of 2 million now. So, pretty interesting session in Western Europe. While Ruthenia cut off Ireland from Russia, Tuscany also took advantage and cut off Spain from Italy. What are your thoughts moving forward if you look at the eastern bloc of Tuscany, Hungary, Ruthenia? Did I make a mistake in moving on Ireland this early?
Just from a step back, it's pretty obvious that Europe is coming up pretty much all Orthodox. Even if Ireland is kind of losing their gains, all the Orthodox nations really do seem to be coming into the major positions of power. I think next session will kind of show if that's true or if Spain can throw a flip around. But you have the two only real Spanish powers, I guess Hanover as well, Protestant powers, my bad, going at each other. So that's kind of an interesting sort of look. As for the war, I think it was the right timing. I really do. If no one had done anything this session, Ireland would just be so much stronger. They would own all of Russia. And so you traded basically what we have is we've traded Ireland with channel income for a Ruthenia with sort of Eastern Europe income, but Russian manpower. So I think that was the right choice overall. It's definitely going to be for you and your ally or allies. I don't know how Martian stand or not. Sorry, not Martian. Jamie stands there. It's going to be kind of hard to deal with because after this war, I can't imagine Curb and Martian not trying to take advantage somehow. Maybe they won't. They stuck with Curb stuck with our kind of agreements so far. So if you guys have agreements there, it'd be good. But
I don't
I think it was
believe
the
I have
correct
any
timing. I
standing
just
agreements with Curb or Martian.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
like I said, I think for you it was the right timing. I just also think that just because it was the right timing doesn't mean it was gonna make it didn't make your situation better. It just stopped it from getting hopeless, essentially.
makes sense.
Because you succeeded. You stopped Ireland. You've definitely put a huge damper on Spain, I think, especially with how slow their new world growth is. If I remember correctly, Tuscany or is going colonial. I think Jamie mentioned something about that.
He did, I think, because Jamie stepped in right before my second war to put pressure on the Spanish Irish because he felt that if they were allowed to attack me, um, it was going to be too difficult to stop them moving forward. So he attacked Spain. I believe he viewed that as probably nullifying his other deals. So he was planning on getting a colonial nation somewhere in the Caribbean, but I think he doesn't view that as viable anymore. So he has not gone colonial. He could swap out of religious, as he hasn't invested in it yet, but who knows?
Right. So I think it's really just gonna this session definitely shook things up as we were anticipating. Um, and for Spain and Tuscany, this is gonna I think they're gonna really have to focus more on European expansion at this point. Um,
Spain does still have quite a bit in the. I don't even know what do we call this region of Africa.
that's called the Sub-Saharan or the Sahel region.
Yeah, the sub-Saharan region. There's still quite a bit of growth for Spain down here.
Yeah, the problem is he has to invest time to do that, and with the pressure that you and Jamie and Hanover are putting on his sort of block, his alliance, I'm not necessarily certain that he has the time. With the money that you guys are hemorrhaging right now, the manpower that you're draining in these huge wars, with a Hungary and a Ruthenia looming, a Mamluks that are beaten but not broken. Um,
Yeah, the three of us combined have let's call it negative 400 ducats a month in income.
Yeah, so and then flip that with the Mamluks, who have just been kind of cucked maybe out of Anatolia, and they need somewhere else. So you never know. If I was Spain, I would kind of be wondering if I backed the wrong horse, but it's too late now. So if I was Spain and Ireland, I'd probably talk with the Mamluks. Um, I would talk with me, the Golden Horde, though I can say now I'm not going to betray Curb. Um, he's done too much for me to be willing to do that. But definitely the Mamluks would be an option, because if Hungary's gonna get involved against you, then you need to find people who are gonna get involved against Hungary, and the real obvious option is the Mamluks. Um, and then maybe try to work out agreement between. If I was in Spain's shoes, what I would do is I would go over to Dutch, and I would offer assistance against the Golden Horde, um, and I'd say, hey Dutch, listen, you and Mamluks, Fizz, like let bygones be bygones. Fizz doesn't need Persian anymore because he can have the Balkans, right? So we'll help you against the Golden Horde, and you let him have like the Hassa stuff, and then we'll help you take out the Golden Horde, and then Spain can go from there. Gabs can ally with Fizz and go after Hungary. Um, it's going to be very hard for Spain. Ireland's, he's got the navy, he's got the boats, he's got Scandinavia. So even if you lose Scandinavia to Curb, he can still. It's Great Britain, fortress UK stuff. For Spain, he's on the continent. There's no way he's getting out of this. And if Hungary continues to pursue, and on the off chance if Ruthenia continues to pursue his sort of alliance, it's going to cause. I think it's going to put Spain in a really awkward position, and by extension, Portugal. We could see some very sneaky deals with Portugal, maybe between yourself or with Jamie, as Jamie might want to split Spain or something like that. I don't know.
I approached Portugal earlier, a couple sessions ago. I asked him for a colonial nation. I thought that might be neat to use his colonial abilities to circumvent the need to take the colonial ideas, and let's just say I was rebuffed. So I'm not sure there's a strong chance of Portugal and myself working together.
Well, fair enough, fair enough.
But let's pivot now. Um, Middle East, Asia, Golden Horde, round two versus the Timurids. How'd it go?
You know, I before that war, I had honestly just a bad session. I got, I had the two of these things I think it was, which made me bankrupt a year earlier than I wanted. I think I lost a couple manufactories because of that. Um, I got a bunch of negative events, losing manpower. I was already at stab, but negative prestige and that sort of stuff. Um, and so I still haven't quite recovered. But Timmy decided to declare on me without Maywar. He declared the war, not me. And I do think for Dutch declaring the war as soon as possible was the right decision. Him not bringing in Ados, Maywar, I don't know if Ados wasn't here. I thought he was, but
He was.
um, okay. I
He had a
don't
decent
understand
session.
that, and
He's starting
yeah,
to get his feet under him. Pretty healthy economy.
right. So I don't know why that decision was made. Dutch fought a really good um, attempt, in my opinion. And maybe he was hoping that Bachmanis wouldn't be able to get to him because Mayor wasn't called in. Um, but unfortunately for him, I guess he forgot about Tibet and Nepal area. And if it was just me versus Dutch, I think Dutch would have kind of been able to beat me silly. I think it basically what we had, but the exact opposite, where I would have fought tooth and nail to the last bit of power or war score I could, and then only then kind of pieced out. And Dutch did a really good job. That's basically what I have to say. He did a really good job. He stuck in there. Great sportsmanship, and it allowed me a great session of just kind of having fun. Um, it was a little annoying that he wasn't piecing out and he was drawing out the war when Call for Peace appeared, but other than that, I think it's interesting. I would like to point out that Bachmanis has Hormuz now, the actual island of Hormuz.
Oh, I did not notice that.
Yeah,
Nice little
so
flag.
fairness where fair is due. I believe that's mostly just for trade company shenanigans. I don't think she really plans to expand too much, um, or block off the Mamluks or anything like that. But we were thinking that the Mamluks would be leaving, so we thought it was safe to kind of take a few islands for trade company purposes. And then Timurids obviously they've been gutted. Mamluks can go into them, I think, pretty fairly. They don't have any alliances that I know of. Um, Maywar, it wouldn't surprise me too much if if Dutch decides to swap to a different nation, I would expect Maywar to expand into the Timurids pretty heavily.
Yeah, it
It
would
looks
only
like,
make sense.
yeah, and it looks like for whatever reason, Helena and Ados have, Helena's going to stick with those border agreements, um, whether that's just because of the money or if it's just because Helena sticks to her agreements. I don't know, but she's stuck to them so far with me and with the Mamluks. And so it's going to be Ados. I think he's going to have to make a hard decision upcoming. And that's basically who he wants to betray. Um, unless he can somehow sneak into Arabia, but I don't know how well off that would leave him. Just because the land he'd be able to take isn't particularly valuable. So it's going to be for him. It's going to be a tough decision. I think he's either going to have to, and maybe not. Maybe he just sits there and builds up a really strong with the land he has.
And let's shift to the far east, if you will. We've got Manchu hiding quite a bit of dev in vassals currently. Um, Ming, Jin, Mongolia, and then Japan. with you and Diabet. So carved up China relatively quickly, maybe a little bit slower than anticipated, but both appearing on the Great Power list. Seems like they have a border agreement in place. Um, how powerful is this little duo going to be when it bumps up against Baja and Golden Horde?
Pretty powerful. I don't think one-on-one. I don't expect just from. So I'll say they had a good session, but I wouldn't call it a great session. I did kind of expect a lot more expansion out of both of them. Um, and it was a real worry for me that especially Manchu, rarely he's a kind of aggressive player. I was really worried that he'd be coming after me with a passion, and it seems like he didn't do that. And so while it's good for me, I'm not sure that's good for Manchu. It's good for him to build up, but what he's basically allowing is me to build up. Um, and so it's gonna be interesting. They could be wanting to ally Timurids, um, but at this point, it might also be better for them to just declare war on the Timurids and try to sneak in. One-on-one, I think Bahamut would beat them quite soundly, but together, they're definitely stronger than me and Bahamut, the Golden Horde and Bahamut. So, I think Manchu, not so much Japan, but I think Manchu is up against the clock here because he's taking about all the best land he's gonna take, and the rest is
Garbage.
how much is he gonna spend? Yeah, how much is he gonna spend deving, and how much is he gonna try to race through the garbage to get to other good lands before I become too stable or yeah, I don't know. And it could also be that they start swapping China, kind of like Curb and I did last season, where they start swapping China as Japan moves further and further south. It's weird that they've cut it like this if that's their plan, but at this point, I don't know. At this point, that's probably what I would consider doing if I was them. Um,
It is
and then,
interesting. There is quite a bit of farmland here. Can quickly be devved up relatively
mhm.
inexpensively. Um, all this garbage is extremely difficult to develop, extremely expensive. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what Manchu decides to do.
Yeah, and I think if I was rarely now, this past session, I would have sprinted to try to come into contact with the Golden Horde and kick them while they're down, and maybe get in on kicking Timmy as well. But considering that didn't happen, what I would do if I was him, I would probably just consolidate China and build up those really easily devved farmlands. Let Golden Horde or Timurids or whoever, right? Maybe Ruthenia does betray me. Let them come through all that crap in the north and dev it up for you. And then once they're kind of devved up and you've built up a super China base, you can take advantage of a momentary weakness down the line and then kind of expand into whoever you do come into contact to. But yeah, I think a slow session is what I kind of suspect is in the future for us in Asia.
And then, on a side note, would be great if we could get our hands on a Majapahit player. Still quite a bit of potential in this region. Um,
Mm-hmm.
hasn't been extremely developed yet, but it's a piracy or pirate republic, so players have fun with that. Um, decent eco, decent navy. Um, it would be nice if we could get a player to slot in here as a new perm.
Yeah, and I think that actually they're they're definitely I think doing better than I am just in terms of eco. So by no means are they a weak nation, and I
Oh
personally
wow,
would argue that maybe they should. Oh yeah, we don't need to
Sail.
discuss that.
Jesus.
Man, like I said, my session was wonderful. But Majapahi, I think, would be a really, really cool nation, especially down the line when Portugal does start considering expansion outside South America.
Any final thoughts? What are you looking forward to most come next Saturday or the following Saturday, depending on holiday calendars and availability?
Right. For me, I think I'm really interested to see what Dutch tries to pull out of his rear end. If he decides to stay in Timmy, he's done a really fun job, or a really good job of making it fun for everyone involved. And so it's gonna be interesting to see what sort of Diplo he tries to pull, or if he just tries to, he's just going down with the ship. He doesn't try to get anyone else involved and make it bigger than it is. He just wants to make it as difficult just to the Timurids. I think that'll be interesting. And then, of course, what happens with you, you and the Spanish border is going to be the land that you own, the land that Spain owns. The end of next session is going to be very intriguing, I think, for those of us that are kind of on the peripheries to see. Is it kind of going to be like the session today when it was back and forth and they get a little bit of land and now you're pushing them out? Is it going to be where they win this war and they just gut you? Are you going to win the war and take back what you lost and then push into Spain? I don't know. I think those are the two areas. And then I think also long term, the New World, and kind of like we were talking at the beginning of the video, just who gets what, I think is going to set up long term tensions between their overlords. And so I think a combination of those two factors, like, if Spain comes back strong, I imagine, maybe we see a Portugal egged out, or we see just kind of everybody gets along and they don't quite get as big as they could have, but everyone's happy. But if Spain or somehow Ireland starts losing a bunch of land, it could I could see I don't see Gabs ever betraying Panda, but after what happened to me, I could see Xerxes and Panda going after Spain once their ally gets defeated, if their ally gets defeated significantly.
Should be an interesting session, regardless, and I'm looking forward to it. It might be one of my last as the big blue blob, depending on the outcome of this current war.
Yeah, and real quick, I wanna briefly talk. If I remember correctly, Bavaria is allied to Spain right now. I saw during session.
Yep.
Yeah, we need not sleep on Mind Boy.
I attempted to abuse this mechanic, so obviously I couldn't beat Ireland and Spain 2-on-1, so I declared on Bavaria in order to try to get into a one-on-one war with Spain while I still had a truce with Ireland. Unfortunately, at the time, Bavaria had a vassal, so I declared on the vassal, and because of that, it didn't automatically call Spain to arms, so it backfired.
Yeah. So I think that's a very bold alliance for for Bavaria, and it's either going to make him loved by his eastern neighbors or make them kind of scared. I would have said loved, except Hungary's fighting Spain now, so. Mindboy made a very bold move, and if Spain can win this war against France, I think it's a strong move that's going to see him get a huge amount of gains. And if this war is a loss for Spain, we might not be seeing a Mindboy at the end of next session.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Bavaria has, against all odds, survived after their start the first session with the giant coalition caused by a ridiculous peace deal done by an AI to where Bavaria is now. It's impressive.
He has 162,000 manpower.
Oh yeah, Bavaria is nothing to sneeze at.
Oh man, we discussed this many times before, but yeah, man. My boy, if you're watching this, I think you've done an amazing job. Of course, you've gotten some help and stuff, but I really do think that the way Bavaria's gone, it's small, but it's really powerful, and it's perfectly situated in the middle of Europe to help his new allies, his current ally, Spain, and potentially Ireland, potentially Ruthenia, make some real moves, make some real changes. He's in a great position to, when people are too busy looking elsewhere, he might come and strike, and you never know.
Well, thank you as always, Zale, and look forward to our next talk.
Yeah, it should be fun. Have a good Christmas, man.
Merry Christmas to you as well.